As well. Joining me now is the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. It's California Democrat Adam Schiff. Congressman Schiff, I want to talk about those congressional committees here in a minute. Let's talk about this alarming report from Ben Cardin and the Democratic side of things on that side. Let me ask you this. You've been looking at this longer or as long as anybody. What's the first 2 or 3 things in a congressional bill that would be unveiled, say, soon, that you would like to see done to prepare us against election interference in 2018?
Well, I think actually the first and most important thing that we ought to be doing isn't going to be contained in a bill, and that is we need to forge a national consensus that if a foreign power intervenes in our affairs again, we will all reject it, no matter which side it helps and which side it hurts. But the biggest impediment to that is the fact that our president won't even acknowledge that it happened. He calls it a witch hunt and a fake. So it's very hard for us to get to that consensus. I don't doubt that the reason why the Senate report is a Democratic report only is not unlike the situation in the White House, where it's been reported if you bring up Russia to the president, he views it as an attack on the legitimacy of his holding office. And it wouldn't surprise me if the Republican senators on the Foreign Affairs Committee felt that if they joined a report cataloging all the Russian intervention around the world, the president would read that as a hostile act. But that leaves us very unprepared. So I would say developing that national consensus, hardening our elections infrastructure, making sure that we have our intelligence agencies focused on detecting Russian intervention. Those are among the top 3 steps that we could take.
All right, I want to get to this issue. Look, the House Intelligence Committee early on, you guys were used sometimes as a punching bag by the Senate. They'd say, oh, look, those guys aren't getting along. It's all partisan over there. And lo and behold, partisanship has now found its way to these Senate investigations. So obviously you're in this, I get a dispute. And at this point, are you dealing with Congressman Conaway or Congressman Nunes in this dispute of this list?
Well, look, my interactions are with Mr. Conaway, and we have a very good working relationship. And it has, I think, been in many respects a model of bipartisanship. But the ultimate decisions are made by Chairman Nunes, and for that reason, subpoenas that should go out aren't going out, and frankly, subpoenas that are not necessary and that carry us in a completely different direction are going out. So at the end of the day, the leadership of the committee and the investigation is in Mr. Nunes' hands. I will say, you know, the problem that you know from the very beginning, Chuck, with that midnight run our chairman took to the White House and the effort to camouflage where he obtained those documents and information really poisoned our committee thereafter. It gives me no sense of enjoyment to see the Senate run into the same problem. But if one party views its responsibility as circling the wagons around the White House and protecting the White House at all costs, it's very hard to do a bipartisan investigation.
Well, let me ask you this. Why, at this point, we have a special counsel. At the end of the day, obviously, you guys have a fact-finding mission. You're a separate branch of government. I'm not disputing that. But because there's a special counsel basically looking at everything you want to look at, how damaging is it really to the investigation, since Mueller has all the powers and the ability to get all these witnesses that you would like to have?
You know, it's a really important question, and I think the key is this. Mueller's responsibility is actually quite narrow. It's his job to figure out what laws have been violated and who should be prosecuted. If it doesn't lead to indictment, he's very unlikely to be able to tell the country what happened. Let's say the evidence he believes reaches a preponderance of the evidence or clear and convincing, but not something proof beyond a reasonable doubt. If he doesn't seek an indictment, we may not know about this connection, this conversation, this meeting, aspect of collusion or conspiracy, and it falls on the Congress to give a full recitation of the facts to the American people. This is what happened. This is what we know on the issue of collusion. This is what we know on the issue of potential obstruction, and make that report to the American people. That is not Bob Mueller's job, and he may very well be prohibited from speaking outside of an indictment.
All right, let me ask you about your meeting today with the FBI director, Christopher Wray, the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein. I assume it has to do with your investigation, with what files they may send over, what folks may come over. Did you have that meeting alone with those two, or were either Congressman Conaway or Congressman Nunes with you?
Well, Chuck, this is an example of the question is going to be a lot longer than the answer. I really can't comment on that. The only thing I want to say generally on the issue of the majority's attack on the FBI and the Department of Justice, this is, I think, a profound distraction from what Russia did, from the issues that we're charged with investigating. It's quite by design, and I think it is, frankly, very much in combination with the referral of Christopher Steele in a criminal investigation, and will do potentially long-term damage to these institutions.
Well, can you simply say if after your meeting was done, you came to some sort of agreement?
You know, I really don't want to comment, except for talking about the more general issue, Chuck.
Fair enough. Well, that's why I saved it for last. I had a feeling that might be your answer, Congressman Schiff, the ranking Democrat on the House.